Welcome back, listeners, to another episode on the BizBlend podcast where mindset meets momentum. I'm your host, Sana, and today's episode is not just another chat about career growth, it is a wake up call for every woman who's ever stayed late, played by the rules, delivered results, but still felt unseen. My guest knows exactly what that feels like, listeners, and more importantly, how to change it. With over 30 years inside the Fortune 500 trenches, she has cracked the code on what keeps talented women from the recognition they deserve. And she's not here to sugarcoat the problem, listeners. She's here to offer a proven roadmap out of invisibility and into empowered leadership. So, if you have ever thought, maybe I'm not doing enough, I'm not getting that visibility, I'm not getting that recognition, this conversation will show you it's not about doing more, it is about showing up differently. So, listeners, meet my guest, Rosie Zilinskas. So, Rosie, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored to have you here with us.
Hi, Sana. Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to talk about everything when it comes to careers for women.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, this is such I mean, less discussed about, yet such a crucial aspect of, of careers of women, because even if they are talented, they are doing more than enough, they're juggling between different roles. I believe there's still a lot of, that visibility concern in there. So, especially when we talk about, ambitious women, Rosie, what are some of the most common ways in their, that they are unknowingly sabotaging their career progression despite uh, ticking all the check boxes?
Yeah, Sana, that's a good question. And I'm glad you asked that because a lot of times uh, women have career blockers, hidden promotion blockers per se, and they don't really know what they are. And it turns out that they're that they don't feel that they're deserving of a promotion. They don't feel like they're likable at work. They might feel like they're not skilled enough, or they might feel like they don't have any visibility. So those are some core hidden promotion blockers that come up over and over and over when I talk to women about their careers. And a lot of times it's just a matter of they want a promotion, but it's not like they want a promotion just to get promoted. They want to be able to pay for their kids' college. They want to be able to have a well funded, comfortable retirement. Sometimes they want to go on a nice vacation with their family, maybe to Disney World, or they just want to remodel their kitchen, things like that. But it all stems from having those hidden blockers.
Hmm. And why do you think there are hidden blockers here? I mean, is there some kind of gender factor here or cultural factor here playing into the system, or what exactly is the reason? I mean, that's I know it's a bit of a kind of a far-fetched question, but yeah, I would love to know that.
No, absolutely. That's a great point because yes, we are it's the way we're socialized. We're from the time that we're little, we're always told that you know, generally society refers to girls um, that they should be pretty and they should be proper and we should be able to follow the rules and things like that, but we don't necessarily do that with males. So
Hmm.
it was interesting because I did some volunteering in an organization recently for high school students, and I was a judge. The high school students had to do a marketing project. And so they had 10 minutes to come up with a scenario and then the marketing project and then present it to the judge. And I was the judge. And it was so interesting, Sana, because there were eight high schoolers that I judged. And 5 males, 3 females. The 3 males, they actually came in with their shoulders back and their head up, and their voice carried really well, good eye contact, again, good handshake. And the 3 young women came in and they barely shook my hand. The eye contact was not great, and their voice was so meek that I had a hard time listening to them. So, and this is when these young people are 17 years old. So, you know that it's from how we're brought up in society versus something that each individual does. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely, Rosie. I'll be very honest. I was also like that. I was also like, I kind of, no eye contact, very meek, and like bowing my head down. It was really a hard time. But yeah, experiences, they did helped me to have that confidence, especially when speaking during meetings or boardroom meetings, or at least in team meetings, taking sessions. So yeah, I completely relate with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and Rosie, you talk about breaking silence and speaking with clarity. So, uh, how can women shift from people pleasing? I mean, once again, I'm not sure if this is a correct reason, but kind of, mostly it is seen in women that we still feel a kind of hesitation to say no to anything, whether it's in our workplaces or in our personal lives as well, because we would feel like we are hurting them, or they may feel bad about us, and it would be kind of rude. So, how can women shift from this people pleasing to powerful communication without being labeled as aggressive?
Yeah, so a lot of times, Sana, what happens as a career coach, I have conversations with a lot of women, and the number one problem or request that I get is, "Hey, Rosie, can you help me build my confidence so that I can go out there and advocate for myself in my career?" And the answer is, I can help you create and build confidence, but it's through preparation. So it's not like one day you're just going to wake up and you're going to be like, okay, great, I'm going to self advocate for myself today. It's not like that. It's going to be a journey, and it's going to be a work in progress, because this journey is where you get to know and understand yourself on a very deep level through the work that I do with my clients. So, for example, we work on creating their personal value proposition. We use powerful language in creating that, meaning who they help and how do they solve problems for for the people that they help. So, all of the different things that we do lends to more confidence, because they know how to explain to somebody else how they can help bring value and solve problems. And that's the biggest issue that women have, is that we don't have that roadmap to figure out what all of the pieces of the puzzle are to get to know yourself better and better, and be able to start breaking down those hidden blockers. And the more you're able to break down those hidden blockers, and just so we're clear, all of these blockers are in your head, right? They're in your mindset. So the more you're able to learn about yourself and identify which one of the hidden blockers is the most predominant, then that's when you can start making progress. And once you start making progress and you're able to show your value and show how you really do bring a lot of value to the organization. You are likable, you do have amazing skills, and you can create visibility for you. That's where you start seeing progress in your career.
I agree. I agree. And Rosie, going back to the the example that you shared about that particular moment, that particular time at high school when you judged. So, did you get a chance to connect with those three, female presenters who, who could, like, whom with whom you could barely have a connection or barely could hear them? Did you get a chance to talk with them?
I did not, and it was against the rules for me to give them any kind of feedback. And as a matter of fact, Sana, one of the participants turned back to me and said, "Can you tell me how I did?" And unfortunately, based on the terms and conditions for the organization, I told her that I couldn't give her any feedback. However, I did reach out to the organization and I proposed to them that I would be happy to do just a complimentary webinar for the young ladies just to give them a little bit of awareness on what they're doing because these young women, they're obviously not being coached
Mhm.
properly so that they can show up with confidence. So I am in the process, and this was just a recent situation. So I am in the process of contacting or being in contact with the organization to do just that.
I think that is absolutely crucial because uh, not only in the workplaces but in the education system, schools. I think that's where, because our foundation gets built during those early stages of our lives. So I think it's very crucial to even um, not only address this in the workplaces but also in the schools and different networking placements and stuff which are happening in colleges and high schools especially.
Absolutely, and just to go one step further, Sana, I had done some research on, just young girls and where their confidence peaks, and I found a study that showed that confidence peaks by the age of 9 years old. So this is around 3rd grade or so, and then the confidence just drops off completely. And interestingly enough, I was talking to a teacher, and she told me this story that she saw it with her own two eyes because one day she was taking care of the kids during recess, and she saw all the 3rd graders, 3rd grade girls, they were collaborating, they were speaking up, and they were playing together, they were trying to build, like, little birdhouses and stuff. And then the very next day, she was in charge of recess for the 4th graders, and she immediately noticed the difference between the 8 and the 9-year-olds, and the 9-year-olds were much more reserved. They were not collaborating as much. They were a little bit more isolated, definitely not as vocal. So
Mm.
that was so interesting because it's just I mean, it's an anecdotal story, but still it showcases how different girls can be from one year to the next. And as we all know, when you go to like a school recital and you see the kindergartners, they're all like yelling and screaming and boastful. And then the high schoolers, like you can barely hear them, because they're embarrassed and they're so self-conscious. So this all the work that that you and I do is specifically to help people see where their blockers are so that they can get rid of them and be able to just talk about how they can help in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's such an important aspect. It's once again less talked about when it comes to um, instilling confidence in young girls and women in leadership, workplaces, or even in navigating through their lives. So this is something very very crucial, and it should be addressed upon by the parents as well. Thank you so much, Rosie, for sharing this. And talking about roadmap, now you help women design roadmaps to leadership. So I'm really curious to know, what does that roadmap really look like in a practical sense, like how we can execute that, especially when we are in an unsupportive environment.
Yeah. So the roadmap is essentially uh, a series of exercises that you do. And the reason why I call it a roadmap is because, we all know that whenever you're flying a plane, it's not going to take off if you don't have a flight plan scheduled. So I always like to say, to kind of give that example, because this is the same thing. Your career cannot continue to advance if you don't have a plan, a strategy. I call mine a roadmap. And so when I start working with my clients, we start figuring out, okay, what does your roadmap look like? So we start talking about, okay, what is it that you really want? What's your big why? And one of those big whys is kind of what I mentioned before, is what are they trying to do? Are they trying to pay for college, retirement, if they're getting this additional money when they're promoted? So just trying to identify their big why. Then we talk about having clarity. We go through an exercise where we identify 9 powerful words, and these powerful words are gonna be their North Star, their their guide to any problem that they have in the workplace or even in their personal lives. They're always gonna go back to this 9 powerful word clarity chart. And then from there, we start talking about building their personal value proposition. The big one that's super powerful is creating a story vault. The story vault is essentially their accomplishments that they've done throughout their career into a uh, problem action solution so that they're easily able to explain how they made a difference in that particular situation at work. And then we go through defining their 90-day plan, their mission, their vision. We talk about really powerful language and how to negotiate with powerful language. And, I even go through their resume, and we do a Kolbe assessment, which the Kolbe assessment actually helps to figure out how you instinctively solve the problems. And so I know that was a lot there that I gave you, but again, this is a journey. It's not a once and done, and then you can, work on this for a week or two. This is an intentional roadmap so that you can, uh, work on knowing and learning about yourself so that whenever that opening, that promotion comes your way, you are ready to apply for that and you're not scrambling to update your resume and update your LinkedIn and figure out what are you going to say during the interview, all that good stuff.
Hmm. Oh, that is really interesting. Story world. I really like that story world. And Rosie, I just want to bring in a bit of a different perspective here, especially for women and young girls out there. Um, so it's often kind of conceived notion that you need to appear, um, you know, very active, energetic, wear good dress, all that stuff. What's your perspective on this, Rosie? I mean, does does this is this a blend of like your mindset, your strategy, knowing your purpose, plus your appearance, or it's everything about mindset?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's the more you're able to know why you tick and how it is that you can uh organically and authentically explain to somebody your value. That's a big difference because with women generally, as we all know, whenever you come across too strong, then they call you names, right? So
Mhm.
we kind of have to do a slightly softer take of, putting ourselves out there without being so overly masculine. And I don't think that we have to be that way. I don't think we have to be aggressive, but we do have to be assertive. So to me, that's the big difference. So yes, having the the appropriate dress. And nowadays we dress so much more different than when I started my career. We're much more business casual, pretty much, in the entire world. But
Mm.
uh, again, it's more being assertive, and the biggest difference that I've seen is using very assertive language, and noticing how we speak. So, making sure that you're speaking in statements and not in questions, making sure that you are, what I call, crafting your script. So, whether you go to a networking event, an interview, you choose very selective words so that you can come across as very assertive without being aggressive.
Wow. That's a really good point, Rosie. Assertive without being aggressive. Mama, that's a really golden nugget there. And then also, of course, we are in the age of AI. Um, and I have had so many conversations, Rosie, where of course, women in tech, that's I think there could be a complete new podcast on that. It could be a discussion of its own because there's still a huge gap in the way how women are they're contributing in tech. And especially with I think AI, um, for women, can be such a game changer, whether it's trying to understand their own value proposition or handling complicated situations, whether it's in their workplaces or in their homes. And so in your view, Rosie, how can psychometrics and AI, how can they be leveraged to support mindset and strategy for career advancement for women?
Well, a lot of times what we do is we just don't even take the time to think about what we want. So I think before we even start, plugging stuff into AI, we do need to understand what is our purpose of our career. Do we want to just continue to advance where we are? Do we want to make a jump to management? Do we want to leave the current company and go to a different company? Do we want to change fields, that kind of thing. So I think that's baseline. That's really important. But then when it comes to AI, learning how to use AI is really critical. And again, I do a lot of coaching, and probably I'm still going to say about 8 out of 10 people that I coach have not yet taken the time to even open an account, a simple ChatGPT account, and most of those are women. So I do think that using AI and building any kind of intentional plan does
Mm.
make a big difference, especially, like years ago, even like 2, 3 years ago, whenever you apply for a job, you had one resume and you would submit the same resume. Nowadays, it's so different because of artificial intelligence that you really need to optimize your resume. You need to optimize your cover letters and thank you notes and all that stuff. But aside from that, AI can help you, and this is where, like, all the psychometric tools to build your story vault, to identify 10 or 15, like, really key phrases that would elevate how you show up and uh will view you or showcase you as much more assertive. And the more you're able to use these crafted phrases, the more you
Mm.
come across as very knowledgeable and having authority in that knowledge, especially like you said in the tech industry or in any industry that's male dominated. You
Mm.
absolutely have to word on the verbiage that you use, and AI can help you do all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you, Rosie. And before we wrap up, I know time is constrained here, but I think this is more from coming from a very nuanced perspective. That is it fair, Rosie, to put the burden of change on women when the system itself is biased? I mean, like, shouldn't the focus be more on changing corporate structures, changing the stigma, the stereotypes, uh, around the gender bias than individual strategies.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see it as putting the burden on women because
Mhm.
we're all responsible for our own careers, right? So I do feel that you're absolutely right. The system is broken from the moment that we are born as women, even today in this day and age, because everything is geared more towards men having the control and the power. Not many people say, "Oh yeah, women now have the control and the power," because we don't. However, uh, companies do need to be more cognizant that the upper leadership echelon does need to understand that they have to create different types of leadership programs for women so that they can retain their best employees and then also build that succession ladder so that they can have people that are qualified to step into director level and VP level and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't say that any one individual has responsibility. I think we all collectively have just responsibility in our own way because companies need to provide those programs to women, but women also need to set a little bit of time aside to work on their careers with intention because as we talked about, early on in the conversation, we're responsible for so many different things, not just ourselves, but our families, parents, children, everything. And so we will leave our career on autopilot, and that's the worst thing that we could do to advance in our career. So I think it's a collective responsibility, Sana, and I think a lot of people are doing many different things to, elevate women in to this day and age.
Absolutely. So I think talent should be neutral. I mean, it's not that just to put on a checkbox, tick the checkbox of gender equality, or just for the sake of showing that number. Eh, I mean, for genuine talent recognition and giving them that platform to help them recognize their talents, understand their value, how they can contribute, especially for women and young girls. I think there should be more and more voices out there. So I absolutely agree with you, Rosie. Oh, great. So, Rosie, before we conclude this conversation, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what will be the best way?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways they can go to my website. My website is nowomanleftbehind.com, and that's WOMAN, nowomanleftbehind.com. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn. My handle is Rosie Career Coaching, but they can also find me as Rosie Zilinskas on LinkedIn. So you can DM me, send me a message. If you want to have a conversation, I'd be happy to have a conversation about career advancement.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to have all the links and details in the show notes. And I believe this wasn't just a career conversation, Rosie. It was a call to courage. And you didn't just give us strategies, but you kind of, held up a mirror for us. And thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you, Sana. This was wonderful. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rosie. And to all the listeners, especially all the women out there, if you have been shrinking to fit into systems that were never built for you, know this, that your invisibility is not your fault, but reclaiming your power is your responsibility. Until next time, keep blending ambition with intention. Share this episode with someone else who needs to be reminded that they are not alone and they are not stuck. This is BizBlend, and I'm your host, Sana. Thank you.